Rion Frequency, where truth cuts deep, growth hits different, and culture leads the conversation. Hosted by Rion, this is the come up for the culture.
I want to speak about black excellence. The fact that my brown skin feels heaven sent. When the wind blows, I feel the touch of heaven's breath. You brainwash your intelligence is evidence. Evidence we built some pyramids that claim it's aliens. Melanin skin absorbs the light inside you radiant. Elevate your conscience, stuck inside the office. Employee of the month, they won't even put that in your coffin. Let's talk about the profit, the margins of spilled your bonnet. Drinking water from your faucet, just to give you droplets. But you in the club, it's popping. Penny, that's the option. Pictures that you prompted, but forget it cause you locked in. Living in the moment. Ryan said it's token, if you black, poor, you broken. Black excellence, when they spill our blood, it's loading. The third eye, the karmic gates is open, but death is better than bondage. Yeah, that's the option. Stay cautious, stay dangerous. You don't need no accolades, nigga, you famous. Stay dangerous.
Stay dangerous. What's up, world? You are tapped in with the Rion Frequency, and this is the come up for the culture. I'm your host, Rion, and I can't even begin to tell you how just excited I am about this particular podcast. This is episode 1, so this is the first of many in a journey of enlightenment. You know, this is more than a podcast. It's really designed to be a movement. It's designed to be a mindset. It's designed to be a vibe. Really, it's a place to get connected to our greatness as Black people. And it's really a space for proper discourse, education, and just the ability to just kind of release. You know, it gives us the ability to kind of take a beat and take a breath, because being Black in America is fucking exhausting. You know, I welcome everybody in this space, but please understand, for those of you that are not Black that are tuning in, this podcast was created with Black people in mind. It's for Black empowerment. So if those types of things offend you, or there are certain things that you take issue with, respectfully, I'm only say this once. Like, if you haven't done the work to get through your shit, to eradicate your racism or your bias or discriminations, you can just respectfully get the fuck off my shit. This is not a code switching podcast. You know, this is not to pander to white comfort. This is not to be tokenized. This is not to be accepted in white spaces. This is not any of those things. This is for Black people. So it's a space where we're gonna build. It's a space where we are gonna act like we were always supposed to. We are not going to conform to the stereotypes. We are not going to conform to what white supremacy has told us about who we are. We're gonna get right back to the roots of things. So this is that podcast, and I'm really excited. So the name Rion itself is of Gaelic origin, and it means king or supreme leader. So I know people are like, this is some old narcissistic ass nigga just decided that he was gonna make a podcast about Black people and name it after himself. You know, in French and Japanese, it can be associated with like royalty, majesty, like power, you know, shit like that. But the name of the podcast actually itself is named after a king's frequency, named after us. You know, kings, queens. It's the Black frequency, really, and this is the one that predates the chains and the stolen names, and so that's what you get. So it is really about just reclaiming that, you know, going from a nigga to being a god, and it derives from the teachings in the book From Niggas to Gods by Akil. It took a lot to get here for me. This journey came with a lot of reading, you know, just applying knowledge, and you know, this is a free game that I'm giving everyone who's tuning in, because I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping. I was on TikTok not too long ago, and there was really just some discourse on why it is that once Black people reach a certain financial level, you know, there's a lot of gatekeeping, and there seems to be in our community that we don't want to uplift everyone else. We want the niggas in the hood to stay in the hood, and we want the upper echelon, or as they call back in the day, the bourgeoisie. They want to stay the bourgeoisie, and then, that dates itself all the way back to slavery. Like you have field niggas and you have house niggas, and the house niggas didn't want the field niggas to come in there. The book From Niggas to Gods is deep. It really is deep, and I really got inspired to use the knowledge inside of the book, just to empower my own people, as a collective. I was listening to Huey Newton from 1968, and his words still ring very true. But something that really stuck with me is when he said that black people as a whole are not a reading people. And Frederick Douglass said that if you want to hide something from a Negro, you just put it in a book. And I tell my kids all the time that everything you need to know is in a book. And that's simply just because niggas don't read. But it does ring in my head from the J. Cole bars, the album of the year freestyle. Yeah, y'all don't know what I'm talking about here. Let me play that shit.
Facade right off of your squad. Little rappers, I love you, but you ain't shit till you got offers in Prague. Look that shit up. A book, nigga, pick that shit up. Expand your vocab. I'm giving out toe tags for no cash.
So, before I even get started, I just want to give a quick disclaimer that I say nigga and I cuss a lot. And most people see that as a sign of unintelligence, but it really is quite the opposite. I'm not really interested in conformity or really trying to appeal to what people deem as professional or as appropriate. This is a space for me to just say what the fuck is on my mind, and that's what I'm gonna do. And a lot of times that comes with cuss words and the word nigga. So just a disclaimer before we get started. But I spent a greater half of my life just never really understanding what it meant to be black. I grew up, I'm Korean and black, so I grew up in around my Korean family. My dad was never around, so I didn't understand, like my blackness. I just knew I was black, because hello, I look in the mirror, I knew what the fuck I saw, but I didn't understand, like, culturally, like, what it meant to be black. Like, I didn't understand spiritually what it meant to be black. So I spent a lot of my life, just worried about being too black, or at least appearing to be and being perceived as being too black, as what society has deemed as blackness. And I always kind of like veil with this mask so that people wouldn't perceive me as a nigga. And as a kid, I never really found too much pride in being black. As a kid, I always based my worth, as far as how I felt, like my confidence in certain things, and just gauging how well I was doing, based off of like my proximity to whiteness. So, I was consistently comparing myself to white people, and myself and my two brothers are the only black people in my family, outside of the men that my mom and my aunts and shit like that have dated, but not understanding what it meant to be black around a whole bunch of Asian people who share their own bias. Like, there's a lot of angst and racism in my family that really hasn't been dealt with, and honestly, I don't know if I'm ever really gonna deal with my family on that level anymore, just because they are like blatantly racist. So to any of my family members who see this, I just want y'all niggas to know, y'all motherfuckers are racist. There it is. But to the world, I'm just a nigga, no matter how Asian my eyes appear. And I guess that's something that my mother and all of my non-black family members just will never understand. So this episode is really personal for me. This is about really just shaking the names and the labels and everything that we've been given, and rising into something much greater. Like, we've been stepping into our power, but like really just hitting with that shift to the frequency. Like, for me, it was just the question, like, on some real shit, like, who named you? Now, I'm not talking like IDs and driver's license and government names. I'm not talking about the names that are on documentation. What I'm talking about is the names and the labels that white supremacy in the society has thrown at us. You know, broke nigga, lazy nigga, angry nigga, dangerous nigga. Stay dangerous though. Stay dangerous. Black people. Uneducated nigga. You know, ghetto niggas. These labels will define you if you let them. You know, they describe the bias of America. That's with 3 Ks. That has been perpetuated about us. And the question really is, what happens when the niggas that you say that to abandon that knowledge? And it's always been a projection of white America. And I emphasize the 3 Ks in America. What happens when all of the learned behaviors from like slave masters, you know, and we return that shit back to the sender, you know what I mean? And we embrace the true roots of our people. What happens when niggas wake up and remember who the fuck they are? What happens when these little niggas get deterred from self-destruction and they are now enlightened with the life before the physical and mental chains that have been placed upon us? What happens then? So for a backstory, I was gifted this book. I didn't even buy this motherfucker. I was gifted this book when I was 17. And shout out to Matt. He was my supervisor at the time. He's a little black dude. He stood like 5'6", and he handed it to me one day at work, and he gave me like some old like Negro lecture. This is how I'm recalling it. And he was just telling me how it would really just like amplify and sophisticate my understanding about the power of blackness. And I was just like, what the fuck, nigga? What are you talking about? And I couldn't see the light then. But like all 17-year-olds, I was just like, fuck this shit, bro. I threw the book in the passenger seat of my car, and I never opened it. I got curious a few years later. I had just came home from doing some jail time or some stupid shit, like over some violations of probation, or I don't even really remember what was going on in my life. And it really was just, you know, self-destruction through like self-hate. But yeah, it was some violations of probation, and you know, it's just nigga shit. Like that's what it was. Like not to say that only niggas are on probation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just like it's typical of, you know, like young black men, young black children, just not understanding their value and not knowing their place in the world. So, you know, they find themselves getting locked into these systems that were created for our demise. You gonna feel me after this episode, I promise. But after all this time, you know, I kept the book, and it was tattered. It was fucked up. It's fucked up now. It's just sitting behind me, but it's still intact. And I used it really for every purpose other than to read that bitch. Like, it was a coaster. You know, I was breaking down my weed. I was rolling up some weed. I spilled a little bit of drink on it. You know, just whatever I could use it for other than reading, I was using the book for. But I got curious. I got real curious, and I opened it. And before I opened it, I stared down at the cover of the book, and I was just like, this is some this is some dark shit. First, like, you know, I stared down at the Klansman holding the 2 black puppets up, one dressed in, you know, the truest blue, you know, depicting the Crips, and the other one flamed up, you know, depicting the Bloods. And it said "From Niggas to Gods" by Akil. And like, I don't know, like something in my soul was just like, you might want to read this. Like, you might want to listen, nigga. You know, I started reading. So I will say, like, if you ain't never read this book, this motherfucker is not for the weak. Like, this is not some shit that you gonna open up and it's gonna be like easing you in, like hold your hand type of shit. It's not. Like, this motherfucker's gonna slap the fuck out of you in your face and just hit you with his message. And I appreciate it though, because like, I like that type of candor. Like, I don't like motherfuckers that just kind of beat around the bush to tell you what the fuck they mean. This is not that. This is yelling right in your ignorant ass face, like every word, just daring you to unlearn all that toxic shit, you know, that white supremacy that's poisoned the minds. Like, it's powerful. It is. And with each passing generation, I mean, it's really just a challenge for us to step into our power. So Akil takes us from the bottom and up. So he forces us to confront a lot of, you know, just like internalized oppression. And these are the things that they shape our money, our relationships, our spiritual habits. They shape the essence of black people. And one of the first lines in the book that just really like shook me is, when you call yourself a nigga, you deny your ancestors who were kings, queens, builders, and creators. And this is not about canceling slang. It's about reprogramming your mind and your consciousness. It's not about the respectability politics. It's about memory. Okay, think about that for a second. It's about memory. It's about really remembering who you are. I'm not telling you not to say the word nigga. As a nigga who uses the word nigga more than most niggas, I'm not telling you not to say nigga. What I'm saying is reprogram the consciousness, reprogram the mind, reprogram the branding around what it means to be a nigga. If you didn't know you was a king, then you would accept someone calling you a clown. When I read Akil's book and I was thinking about it, it kind of shook me a little bit, because he writes that, nigga isn't just a word, it's a psychological collar. It's a mindset. It's programmed into the identity. It's rooted in the ignorance and passed down generation to generation and reinforced through the systems that were never designed to let us thrive. And it's true. What I'm saying is reprogramming that mindset is key. Now, when I was reading this, I had to sit with it for a little bit, because I was reading it from the perspective of like a young nigga, like in full effect. Like I was thinking, like what kind of Nation of Islam bullshit is this? Like there's nothing wrong with being a nigga and doing nigga shit. I love Boondocks. Like I literally have Riley tatted on me. It was depicted like in the first like few episodes, when they're talking about like nigga moments. And it's interesting just because like that was where I was understanding like psychological color, like what he was saying, the things that have literally been like programmed as a mindset, just like rooted in identity that's not even ours. Like, it's not even ours. Like that's the crazy part. Like it ain't even for us. White people made that shit up. Colonizers made that shit up. Now this is not a podcast of all white people are bad. Okay, it's not. I need y'all to feel me on that. This is not that. But it took me a few years to really understand the concept, and everyone's journey to this type of self-discovery, this type of self-love, it is different, and you're gonna arrive when you arrive, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Because for me, it wasn't really about like black pride. It was really just about like the black truth, and the truth is always liberating. So why is it that, like white folks, like they work real hard to keep that motherfucker hidden? Like they work their ass off to rewrite history. They work their ass off to keep hidden, what we witness and who we are firsthand. Like we are historically creators. Historically we are the kings, the queens, the emperors. We run shit. We're the black woman is the creator. So in order to keep the power structure, that like they have to sit here and lie to us, and a lot of niggas believe it. They believe that they're nothing better than whatever it is that they're a condition of their environment. Again, the conditions of their environment are based on white supremacy. So historically we could reference the psychological warfare of slavery, and even after, honestly, because what came after, in my personal opinion, just like the Reconstruction era, like I feel like that was more detrimental to black people, and ultimately that is the byproduct of like how niggas think today. The reason why I say Reconstruction was a more detrimental era is just because like slaves were still understanding who they were. It wasn't until like I feel like they gave black people the idea of freedom, which was a guise. Like it wasn't real freedom. Like we still not free. Like they were using the word free pretty loosely. Like systems like black codes, and then later like Jim Crow. Like it was just an evolution of what we had already experienced. It wasn't no different. You know what I mean? Like people are always like, oh yeah, like black people they're so resilient. We resilient, motherfucker, because this is the same shit. You know what I mean? Like it's the same plays, left and right to left. White supremacy and colonization has, obviously predates slavery. But I mean, for black people in America, as we are today, like we talking about 400 fucking years, bruh. That's generations on generations on generations. Yeah, we're resilient people, but nigga, we already know what the fuck is coming. So when racist shit happens in 2025, nigga, you look at people and they're like, oh well, black people they're so resilient, they just take it in such stride. Nah, nigga, we just already knew it was coming. We don't have to respond anymore. It's a fucking waste of energy. That's why everyone being mad at, the 92%. Shout out to the black women. Shout out to the black women. But everyone being mad at the 92% because they resting, it's crazy. Malcolm X said in an interview that he gave in 1962 that we should be leery of white liberals being giving to the black community as tribute, that wish to lead the effort rather than to partake in it. Malcolm told no fucking lies when he said that. So now that I'm looking, like, this is not an all white people are bad rant. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that white people and white ideologies are different. Full stop on that motherfucker. Like, white people and white ideologies are different. And we can have discourse on that at a later date. But right now, I'm gonna stand on what the fuck I said. White people and white ideologies are two totally different things. So we got to be leery of white people who claim to have black initiatives or black progression as their objective when they truly still have white ideologies. Sit on that. Think about that for just one motherfucking minute, and we'll come back to it. This should pose a lot of questions, and it should be asked, especially right now. You know what I mean? Like, when activism for most people, especially the white folks, is performative. I'm specifically talking about like TikTokers. In a state of politics and human rights, I respect a lot of the influencers, the ones who speak up. I just don't think that all of them have done the work. And this is made true by the Unfuck America tour that happened about 2 months ago, which was hosted by white liberals, to advocate for marginalized groups and basically just follow Charlie Kirk's old stupid ass around for a soundbite or two. And while, again, I understand, like, you got to get your clicks, you got to get your views. Malcolm told us we got to be leery of the white folks, the white liberals, okay? It's one thing to march, motherfucker. It's another thing to tell me to follow you. We can march together. We can march shoulder to shoulder. But the second that I gotta follow you, it's a problem. That's what I'm saying. Just think about it. So with the Unfuck America tour, you had Dean, you had Parker, and you had some other creators. You had Z, who was the organizer. And, they still got their little microaggressions. You still got Dean, the white boy. Like, he was calling, motherfuckers the hard R not too long ago. You know what I mean? Like, he still hasn't done the work. And I'm not, this not a Dean rant. I'm just saying, like, you still young, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like, you still young. You still got lots of motherfucking learn. I respect the fact that, like, you're trying to call out white people, but you gotta understand that, like, when you're confronted with something and when you display and then you double down and you defend someone else's actions, it's a problem. White ideology and any creed or any color, can take on the white ideology. And I need people to understand that, like, white ideology has nothing to do with, like, your race. I know black people who got white ideologies, and y'all need to stop. Just cut that bullshit all the way the fuck off. It does not matter how close in proximity you are to white folks. You will never be like them. They don't want you. You are not a part of their fucking club. You can be tokenized, but you're not a part of their club. I promise you. So why do you think we got so many self-hating Latinos and Asians and niggas, and the list could fucking go on forever. Real talk. Like, if we're really fucking being serious, it could go on forever. But me as an informed nigga now, I never fucked with those types of movements or really the messages. You know what I mean? And like I said, no shade or no hate to the performative activism. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get people interested, and like, they're, I guess, provoking a little bit of thought into like the younger generations and getting them involved, and that's important. But I need niggas to do some type of research. I respect the knowledge that they have, but what I'm saying, like, that's not enough for you to be full of me, my nigga. Not at all. They wish to control the movement opposed to really empower it. And like, our movements as black people, they don't want it to be empowered, which is kind of the reason, like, I personally feel like the Black Lives Matter movement just didn't really go the direction, like, aside from the fuckery that was going on, like, with the finances and things like that. I feel like it was it was taken over by white liberals, and then the objective of white ideologies remains the same. It doesn't matter how liberal or how conservative they are on either side of the, on either side of that token. And there's a chapter in From Niggas to Gods titled Friendly White Folks, and this quote made me think of like the unfuck America bullshit, and really just all of the things that pertain to white people trying to overtake and control black movements. Your friendly white folks can't seem to handle no real black man or real black woman, no matter how liberal they pretend to be. And I had to sit with that for a minute and really think on it, and really think back to the wisdom of Malcolm X and what he was saying. When Z and the other creators were called out, they were quiet as fuck. You know what I mean? Like they were quiet as fuck, and they doubled down when they did speak on it. No amount of damage control is going to help them, because it doesn't matter how liberal you pretend to be, you still live with the white ideologies, and they haven't been shaken from you yet. That's not to say that there are no white people that that haven't done the work. There's a lot of white people that have done the work, and if you're on TikTok, examples of that is going to be like Good Trouble, Jolly Green Ginger, Drinkable Brian, you know what I mean, Peyton, Brad. He's one of my favorite white boys, like to be real. And Tizzy, and there's a few others, you know what I mean, that I'm not naming here. I don't want to go on a TikTok rant. Like, I really want to stay to the course. But if you're following, these are white folks that have done the work. They're not trying to lead no movement. You know what I mean? They gonna march right beside niggas, but they're not gonna tell them to follow. They're not gonna turn around and say, follow me to salvation. They're marching to exactly where we want to go. And I fuck with that. So I stand with Malcolm on his stance on white liberals and white saviors, who wish to overtake and control movements, opposed to, just aiding it and progressing it forward. I don't want the white folks taking over my movement. And I know a lot of motherfuckers gonna say, well, yeah, that was back then. Okay, like, we could dig all the way into history, because we could do that. Like, I like history. History is one of my favorite subjects. And that's a shout out to my history teacher. My history teacher in high school is slightly famous, so big shout out to Jay Benish. I don't know if he's an educator still, but he was one of the few teachers when I was in high school that actually promoted critical thinking and actually wanted us to think outside the box, and I truly do appreciate that. But we can dig into the history and catch the wisdom of Malcolm X for what it really is. So we can look at the 13th Amendment. Okay, there's a loophole in that allows slavery to continue under the mask of punishment for crime. And everyone's like, oh well, but Lincoln freed the slaves, and we was celebrating. Like, when I was a kid, like, I was just like, oh, President Lincoln was a revolutionary. That nigga wasn't a revolutionary. He didn't give a fuck about black people. It's different, like, when you learn history for what it really is. In 1865, Lincoln signed the 13th Amendment, and history is a motherfucking lie, right? Because they made it seem like this whole grand event that he was interested in the betterment of black people, and he wasn't. Lincoln didn't give a fuck about us. I just want you to hear that. Like, Lincoln didn't give a fuck about black people. If you fuck with the power structure in their pockets long enough, you'll see where their true interest lies. Lincoln said in his letter to Horace Greeley, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it." Does that sound like a nigga who gives a fuck about black people? No. He gives a fuck about the state of his own union. He gives a fuck about the country that he's creating, and he understands that the economy that he has cannot thrive and cannot function as long as slavery continues to exist. So please don't be fooled into thinking like Lincoln and the 13th Amendment was like this great shift for us, this great foundation for us, because they gave a fuck. They didn't. They just needed us in a different way. But reading the fine print, y'all gonna notice that I go on a lot of motherfucking tangents, but reading the fine print, there's a loophole in the 13th Amendment, and the amendment says that slavery has been abolished except as a punishment for a crime. Okay, that is the exception. That is the legal backdooring, And you know that the system, you know that them niggas came sprinting with their chains in hand. They said, look, y'all niggas are free, but we about to lock y'all motherfuckers up again. And they did. So after the Civil War, the southern states got, we'll just call it creative. I don't ever think that white folks are creative. I really don't. Like, anything that's rooted in that much fucking hate can't be out of fucking creativity. Because creativity is like, it's divine. You know what I mean? So I don't think the white folks are creative. I don't think white folks that have white ideologies are creative. They couldn't own us anymore. Okay, so they had to criminalize us so that they could take back ownership. So loitering and vagrancy and not having a job and all of these things that, you know, technically a free person who just gained freedom, they likely wouldn't have a job. Right, and they would be loitering. You know, they really didn't have a place to go, because it's not like motherfuckers wasn't racist anymore. Like the 13th Amendment didn't abolish racism. It just said that niggas, these white dudes and these plantation owners can't own us anymore. So the racism didn't go anywhere. So, you know, they wasn't like raising a hand. Nobody was fucking volunteering to give anybody a job. So these types of petty, what they consider crimes, they locked us up in droves, and then they leased us they leased our labor right back to the plantations and to the railroads. And that was the birth of convict leasing. You know, slavery reborn under a new name. The system has always been rigged, and nothing about the 3Ks in America was built or created with niggas in mind. So whenever legislation is proposed, you got to ask yourself this, okay? Like, seriously, especially right now in a tumultuous political climate, you got to ask yourself, who's backing it and who's heading it? Because if it's white people with white ideologies, please be leery of that shit, because that is that white savior shit. But they ain't trying to save you, nigga, ever. You look back into 1971 with Richard Nixon, when he declared a war on drugs during the height of where white folks was, you know, smoking weed and using heroin at Woodstock and screaming for fucking peace. But the shit is ironic as fuck when you think about it, right? The chief of domestic policy for Nixon, which is one of his top aides, he later admitted that the goal was, and this is his direct quote, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or blacks. By getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, we could disrupt those communities." He was talking about us. He was talking about black folks. So when people say, oh, slavery, get over it, it was so long ago. Shit, everything was so long ago. Nigga, 1971? What the fuck? My mom was born in 1971. Like, it wasn't that long ago. Like, be so fucking for real. These policies targeted black folks, niggas, me, you, anybody who looked like me or you, and those who opposed the war. But anytime a politician declares war on anything, it's always going to be on people of color. If it's associated with whiteness, it's always a crisis. It's always a crisis. It's a mental health crisis when white folks shoot up fucking schools, hospitals, any public event because, you know, Billy was bullied. It's a crisis. No, nigga, call it what the fuck it is. White people been killing people and genociding people since the beginning of fucking time. Just call it what it is. This is violence perpetuated continuously. These are the same folks that was raping indigenous women, enslaving children, selling children, buck breaking. Is it truly a mental health crisis? Like, y'all ain't feeling me. Hence why Reagan in the 1980s continued Nixon's legacy of war on drugs. That's what we'll call it. We know what it really is, but we're gonna call it the war on drugs. And Nixon increased the funding for the war on black communities. And this is why, really, niggas need to know that history. You know, Reagan introduced the mandatory minimum sentences. This is where the 100-to-1 ratio sentencing for crack came in versus cocaine, because, you know, coke wasn't for niggas. You know, coke was for Wall Street and white boys and white girls, but not for the nigga. And once again, always the war on drugs. It puts into perspective that the the goal and the initiative was it's always on fucking wash, rinse, and repeat. You know what I mean? Like it's always the same shit over and over again. So to my point when I said earlier, like, yes, we as black people are resilient, but it's not like it's not anything that we didn't expect. I was a kid when Bill Clinton was elected president in 1993, and I don't really remember much about it. Over the years, I just heard people, black folks, talk about Bill Clinton like he's one of us, honestly, But Kendrick Lamar did a great job, so eloquently, as of recently, letting niggas know they not like us. Like, I ain't know much about Billy, you know what I mean? All I knew is that, he had got some head off in the Oval Office, and people were very upset with him and Monica Lewinsky, and that was like really it. I had heard that in the 90s, like, the economy was good and we had a GDP surplus, and things were happening in America. I don't know, I guess I just always assumed that Bill Clinton was for the cause. But the plan was always in fucking motion. Be leery of the white liberals that have been given to us as tribute. Malcolm X warned us about the white liberals. And in 1994, then a senator, Joe Biden, aided in drafting the infamous crime bill, which was the Violent Crime Control in Law Enforcement Act. And this expanded privatized prisons, and it introduced the 3 strikes law. It provided funding for more slave catchers or law enforcement, whatever you want to call them. And the lasting effect is mass incarceration, and it ballooned despite crime continuing to fall. But we gotta ask ourselves though, like, who's getting locked up? And I know, like, some of the less enlightened niggas, they're gonna be like, well, white people go to prison too. No shit. The fuck? The power structure is cool with the few that slip through the cracks, that fall victim for the cause, for the entirety. White supremacy is okay with white people going to prison and being treated as slaves. And mind you, when we were brought to this country, they brought white folks as well, because they're okay with a few falling victim. But the power structure, white ideologies, and the power hungry, like, systems, they recognize immediately, once they had indentured servants and slaves together, that they would come together with a common cause and they would revolt. So why do you think that they told poor whites at least they weren't niggas? And they believed it, and still to this day, like, you still got white folks that believe, and they're like, well, at least I'm not a nigger. Yeah, bruh, come on now. The saddest part about that is when they told these white folks that that at least you weren't them, we believed it too. We believed it too. Like, well, we want to be them. No, we don't. No, we don't. So to the people that think like, oh yeah, white people go to prison too. Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? But I need you to get out your house nigga mentality. All I say to those people is just elevate your mind a little bit. But in New York, you can ask anybody there. You know what I mean? They know this all too well. Rudy Giuliani and Mike Bloomberg had a little pet project, which was stop and frisk. And you could be walking around the school, you gotta be going to work, boom, they got your ass up on the wall, no warrant, no reason, just blackness. You just look like you fit the fucking description as. That obviously was racial profiling. It was called unconstitutional by a judge. But again, this came from a white liberal. Okay, to the point that I was making from the very beginning is Malcolm X said to be leery of white liberals who are given to us as tribute. Understanding that Mike Bloomberg ran for president as a progressive candidate in 2020. I'm not talking politics on this episode. I honestly really don't want to talk politics, because motherfuckers will forever believe that Democrat, Republican, it really don't matter. Those are 2 sides of the same fucking token. They don't give a fuck about black people regardless. And I know what I'm gonna get from other people, which is our people fought to vote. I understand that. What I'm saying is the establishment. I'm not talking about every single politician, but what I'm saying is that the establishment is this same fucking token as a whole. So behind all the bullshit, before I go any further. Behind all the bullshit were policies that were crafted by politicians from both parties, and they backed private prisons with money and fear mongering and more votes, and they didn't just stumble into this shit. They engineered it. So the 13th Amendment was never really about freedom. It was about control. It was reshaped, it was repackaged, it was rebranded. Boom, and they got it. So when people say shit like the system is broken, nah, my nigga, it's not broken. It's working. It's working exactly as it was designed to. Just because it's not working for you doesn't mean that the shit not working. And no, I don't bring this shit up for pity, because God, I just hear these motherfuckers now. I bring it up so that we can understand power. Because once you understand the blueprint, once you understand how to deconstruct it, you can demolish it. And then once you demolish something, that only leaves room for you to build something better. So at this point in time, in 2025, black folks, we renovating. Like, what does this mean for your everyday life? Because I just dropped a whole bunch of historical shit. You should care about what has happened, so when it does repeat itself, we're not too ignorant as a people to understand what the hell is going on. A lot of what is taking place right here and right now, there's a lot of corruption, of course, but overall it comes from an overwhelming amount of ignorance. It's the reason why we got you people chanting "Make America Great Again" like Ronald Reagan wasn't a fucking racist. I'm talking about our people. I ain't talking about white people. I ain't fucking worried about them. I'm talking about our people. I'm talking about black folks that are talking about "Make America Great Again." Nigga, are you lost? So before anything, it means that the first wealth that we build is actually not money. It's through identity. Knowing who the fuck we are. You gotta know who you are so nobody can discount your value. Now, I'm not telling you to go do the revolutionary shit. You don't gotta be no Ryan X Shabazz or none of that shit. You really don't have to. I mean, if you want to, absolutely, go for it. But it's really just to shift your mind away from perpetuated negative stereotypes of niggerdom or niggas, and you know what I mean, and really just embrace your blackness. I see more people celebrating their excellence, and I love that. I love to see that shit, whatever it may be. I see more, I'm seeing more and more black creatives. I'm seeing more black writers, not just doctors, lawyers, and like the image that has been sold to us has always been the rapper or the ball player. I love what social media has opened little black eyes to is to see excellence in any category. I see photographers and videographers. I see poets, authors. Of course, I see, the doctors, the lawyers, but I see the entrepreneurs as well. I see the real estate agents. I see people that are making a difference every single day in serving communities. You know what I mean? So our image has always been sold as some bullshit. It's always been packaged, but you got to understand who the fuck is running that shit. And rap. This is not all rap is bad, because I listen to rap music and I fuck with rap music always, and I respect the artists who are there. I just wish that they would stand for a little bit more than what they do, but that's a topic for a different day. But rap algorithms in itself, they glorify self-destruction, and the school system glorifies European history while skipping our revolutions. You know what I mean? And there's a chapter in the book that discusses this, and I actually have a whole podcast episode dedicated to education as black people, the difference between education and knowledge. And because I know a lot of educated black folks, but I also know that them niggas are stupid as fuck, and these are people with master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. Like, just because you have that doesn't make you smart. It makes you it makes you disciplined, and that's respectable. That's discourse for another day. But not understanding where we come from, and in addition to that, always measuring your intellect based off of these yardsticks that white people have told us what education is. I'm all for black academics, but act like it. And I'm not saying that there's a problem with rap music. I'm really just saying that there's a problem with exposure. So like what they're selling it just really ain't us. You know what I mean? Like, they're not really exposing like black excellence really means. You know, they're selling this idea of what white people think black people are. You know, ghetto ratchet. They're not celebrating the most educated women in this country, black women. You know, they're too busy trying to figure out, you know, like why, you know, Chris Brown is calling Compton Bompton. You know what I mean? And why he's a blood. You know, why he dissing Offset and all that other shit. And then speaking of Offset, you know, they're trying to figure out why Cardi B and what their baby mama, baby daddy drama is, because that is what blackness is perpetuated as. Gang violence, you know what I mean? Black people, black on black violence, you know, not proximity crimes, but black on black crime. Yeah. The dysfunction of black families, which is the baby mom, baby dad drama, all of that, you know, it's programming. Staying true to Malcolm and his quotes, the most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman, and the most neglected person in America is the black woman. But it wasn't a quote. That's not what he did. He gave us prophecy. He said, when the black woman is the most disrespected, the family is fractured, the culture is weakened. You know, the enemy understands this. This is why division is so fucking profitable. I blame a lot of just because it's degradation of self-worth, of what, you know, of who we really are versus, you know, who we are perpetuated to be. You know, is that keeping you entertained? You know what I mean? But division works. It's profitable. It's profitable to tell black men to stray away from black women. It's profitable to tell, you know, black women to stray away from black men, just because, you know, they don't want that. It's profitable to divide, and it's profitable to dilute. Like, that's just what it is. So we've torn apart, you know, the lies of what the power structure has always wanted us to be. You know what I mean? They wanted us, they gave us a narrative. They told us, you're violent, but we're not violent by nature. You know what I mean? They told us that you're ghetto, you're worthless, you're uneducated. And niggas started to believe that shit. Oh, I'm a YN, I'm gonna hit a nigga with a switch. Why though? Why? I know niggas that are literally trying to do it like just for Instagram clout. Like, what is you doing? You know what I mean? Like, for real, brother, like, pick your mind up. You know what I mean? Have a little bit of self fucking respect. And it's not about doing the white thing. You know what I mean? I never understood how people bought into that. Because we are the supreme wisdom. It's evidence in that. We built the pyramid. Shout out to Chuck Moon. Chuck Moon is the artist who was on the intro. And his words is true. So you check out all his shit on Spotify, on Apple Music. But more than anything, you can check it into what he's saying, because, you know, like, we're geniuses. You know, before fucking bondage, before, you know what I'm saying, the middle passage, before everything that they told you that we were. Yeah, that's the genius came from us. You know what I mean? So the truth is that, you know, you're not broken. You're not a stereotype. You are not who they programmed us to be. You're a builder. You are a visionary. You are a fucking god. You're a god in motion. Divinity is within you. It's not external. I know I'm gonna piss a lot of Christians off, and that's okay, because I mean, I'm ready to have this discourse with y'all too. But black Christianity is crazy. It just is. Like, as I understand being spiritual, but I ain't gonna praise no white Jesus ever. Never. My Messiah, my God, he gotta look like me. Cause otherwise, like, what? What am I doing? You know what I mean? God is within you. It's not an external thing. God is within you. So if you're looking on the outside, that's because they told you to. That's because they told you to look up into space to find God. They never wanted you to understand that divinity is within you. You know what I mean? Evidence is that is in your skin. But we are the fucking original people. This is, you know, somebody asked me about, like, black pride and supremacy. No, I don't really believe in supremacy, because I don't think that black people live in a state of supremacy, even though we could. All the things that white supremacy is what really black people are. You see the projection there? Like, white people say we're the superior race, but be inferior in every single fucking category. So this just means that we just moving out of survival mode. You know, we moving into sovereignty. You know what I mean? I'm not debating niggas on Confederacy. Nah, I'm just gonna be like, try me with that shit. Try me with that shit. Like, I'm not surviving anymore. I'm sovereign, motherfucker. Like, the God is within me. Try me. Culture is ours. Anybody who says otherwise, you goddamn lie. You goddamn lie. The culture is ours. Black culture makes the motherfucking world go round. And anybody who tries to deny that shit is, one, you're a hater. You're definitely a hater. But in addition to being a hater, you're a denier of God in itself. As I said, like, culture is through creativity, and creativity comes through divinity. And black people create it all. It does not matter. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. Culture is ours. History is ours. And royalty, that's not a birthright. You got to claim that shit. So that's what makes this journey just as spiritual as it is political. I mean, you know what I mean? Knowing that self-knowledge is your first step in wealth, that's going to strip you of the ignorance. And even if they took everything from you, you know, your money, your job, your status, you know, all the things that people think make them, your truth will always remain. And power isn't just about money. Like, I feel like people only think about that just because, like, that's how white people think. They think that, like, their power is all in their money. I say money ain't shit in the sense of, not that it is not a lot of things, because it buys access. It buys a lot of things. The things that it doesn't buy is the things that white people are always trying to get. But it's more about self-possession. You know what I mean? It's the ability to control your mind, your time, and your direction. And the reason why I say that, like, the idea of, like, white power or possession, white people don't control their own mind, especially those who live with white ideologies. Like, you spend 99% of your time thinking about other people. You don't have possession of your own mind. You don't have possession of your own time, because you spend your time doing that. And your direction is always in spite of where someone else is going. So white supremacy is crazy. And it's honestly, this journey is not really an individual journey. Like, this is a collective journey. And that's the reason really why I started this, is just so that I can have candid conversations with people who understand that. And when we wake up, you know, and we lift this whole thing up, you know, that's how we break all of the generational curses. That's how we get back to who we are. And it's not just with the dollars, you know what I mean, but it's with clarity first. Money comes second. And, you know, in future episodes, we're gonna be diving deep into money, because don't get me wrong, you know, I do believe in free enterprise, and I do believe in making money, you know what I mean? And I feel like our people, more than anything, need to be educated on how to make money, how to invest, how to set up trust. Our people don't know this, you know what I mean? How to buy stocks, how to buy bonds. You know, we gonna go over all of it. Yeah, money it's a big thing, but it's not the only thing. Like, until we fix what the fuck we got going on first, like, we got to get that clarity. Understanding that, you know, like, we make up, you know, as a people, we make up for $2 trillion worth of spending power. But, you know, also in that same note, like, nigga, we don't keep none of that money. We give all that shit away. We give our power away. We don't have that clarity, and then we turn around and then we fucking go give our money away. Like, shit, no wonder we losing. They took out all of the initial leaders, you know what I mean, that was teaching independence and sovereignty. And this is an extension of that, teaching independence and sovereignty. I'm not telling everybody to go grab a Black Panther jackets and shit. So it's just like, get your mind right, you know, and your life will follow. There is no real revolution that happens externally before it happens internally. And once I realized that, like, the nigga shit that I was doing, like, I started to align myself with the frequency of God. And not God in the sense of religion, but God in the sense of spirituality. And I started to listen to, you know, what Akil was teaching, which is, you know, he wasn't asking me to read the book and just be smart. He was asking me to wake the fuck up. And that's what I did. I woke up. And, I shed the language of the slaves, and, I stepped into the posture of a ruler. And I'm going to ask the same of everybody who's listening, is to step into the posture of being rulers. Position yourself to, to be confident, to stop apologizing for it, to stop shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. Y'all niggas is motherfucking royalty, in real time. In real time. Not perfect, but polished and powerful. Like, and I'm gonna say that again for everybody who wasn't listening. You know what I mean? We are not perfect, but we are powerful. So we not trends, we not statistics. You are a frequency that rises everything around you. Today I challenge all my black folks to drop them labels, whatever it may be. Whatever label that you feel like has been laid on you by white supremacy. And I ask that you raise your crown, that you accept that your bloodline is royal, and you step into your frequency. This is the Rion Frequency, and this is the come up for the culture. So till the next time, stay loyal, stay rooted, and keep that frequency high.
This was the Rion Frequency, where the wealth conversation starts with mindset and ends in legacy. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. This ain't just a podcast, it's a frequency shift. Stay royal, stay rooted, and as always, keep your frequency high.